Go.
Life is good.
All right, people, welcome in America's least serious horse racing podcast, Horse Racing Happy Hour, hanging out with you. Louie Barry, we got producer Zach, and of course our guy, I'll point that way, over there, Barry Spears. How about that? The urban handicapper, the sniper, whatever you call him. We call him Barry around here. Barry, how are you, man?
Hanging in there, man. You know, it's the least serious it's the most serious by being the least serious. See?
There you go. All right. How about that? Yeah.
Little
No,
opposite.
We take the sport seriously. We just don't take ourselves seriously. That's essentially what we try to do. So there you go. All right.
Fair.
Well, Barry Spears with us, man. He's got that beautiful background there in Daytona. He is our correspondent for all things Tampa. So we always call him on these weekends. Of course, Tampa Bay Derby this weekend. And their top race actually is this weekend in the Hillsborough as well. So we'll talk about all those races. Fun. I like how they move their cards around. There's multiple pick 5s to try out. A pick 6. They've got a couple different pick 4 options, takeout options at Tampa. Very favorable to the player as well. So we'll get into all of that in the second segment. We'll start, though, Barry, with the replays and kind of get into what we're thinking about this Kentucky Derby melange of horses at this point. And so trying to figure out who's who here. But Dornoch keeps the trend going from Sierra Leone a couple of weeks ago in Louisiana, comes off the bench and wins his prep down there in the Fountain of Youth in Miami. So he joins Hades as winners of preps in Florida leading into the Kentucky Derby. Of course, the Florida Derby is the number 1 predictor for winners of the Kentucky Derby. Second, of course, Santa Anita Derby. And then third is the Wood Memorial. Those 3 historically are best predictors. The Wood Memorial hasn't been that great for the last quarter century. So we lean into tracks like Gulfstream, sending us the very best horses for that first Saturday of May. Zach, do we have Dornoch's performance there down the stretch? Pete Aiello on
Louis Saez on big favorite Dornoch. He's inside a quarter of a mile from home and in front. Le Dambro fighting as hard as he can, trying to stick with them. 3 back to Frankie's Empire, and they're at the top of the stretch. It's Dornoch asked to finish the job at the inside. Le Dambro running his heart out, but he's back to second as Dornoch is too much horse. Dornoch clear with a 16th to go. The Fountain of Youth Stakes goes to Dornoch. Dornoch passes.
Man, so Dombro, dude, I feel bad for that horse because I think he's just too little to do anything. You know what I mean? Like, I say that now. I just totally jinxed myself. He's going to win every race he ever runs. Again, by the way, I want to give a shout out before we get into Tampa. Our boys at Single Barrel Cigars hanging out with us, Ybor City, doing the work on these shows. And so make sure you get in there, check them out all over the Tampa area. So if you're heading to the track this weekend, they've got you covered. Check them out, singlebarrelcigarco.com as well. Got you covered on there, all the socials and all those things. Dornoch off the bench. Barry, I've made the case the last couple weeks on this show. A couple years ago, we had that Kentucky Jockey Club, Smile Happy, Classic Causeway. We got White Barrio out of that race. Any chance we look at this Remsen the same way? Because I think there's a chance we do.
Yeah, which is surprising because,
surprising.
You know, the last few years, the surface and the fields at Aqueduct have been tough. You know, I think that the only horse that really came out of that race, the Wood Memorial a couple years back with Bourbonic, the one that he won, was Dynamic One. He's still around, but everybody else is kind of gone. But the track at Aqueduct in the winter has been notoriously deep and it's kind of slow, but horses haven't really come out of that or those races and done well at other places. But this year's a different story. I mean, you saw Sierra Leone come back really well at the fairgrounds, and then Dornoch took care of business. I mean, albeit it was a kind of a paid workout for him, but
sure,
it's also good to see him do what he needed to do against softer competition.
That's exactly right. And the running style, too, that sets up better for a Derby run than it does for Sierra Leone, who is going to have to come from off the pace if he keeps his current running style. So that part of Dornoch, Barry, I really like that he's willing to be closer to the front of the pace, do more of the work that a horse like Sierra Leone is. And it's not a knock on Sierra Leone. He could definitely win a bunch of races with that running style, especially at 9-10 furlongs, that kind of thing. It's just, man, it's better if you have less horses to pass in a 20-horse field. And so that makes me put Dornoch probably just running style-wise a little ahead of Sierra Leone. I think Sierra Leone might be a little more talented. Between those two, Barry, do you have a favorite?
I'd go with Dornoch too. I mean, I like that race in the Fountain of Youth. It's pretty good, despite it not being a really tough race. And you can see the horses kind of playing around in the stretch. Didn't switch leads until later, you know, and they really didn't ask them for too much. So you know, you kind of rolling the dice a little bit here, get into a risky territory where, um, you know, maybe he didn't do enough, and it might hurt him later on. But that remains to be seen. But all systems look pretty good so far. I mean,
All you
but
can
this,
do is win the races in front of you, right? I mean, is essentially what we can say about Dornoch. And he didn't just win; he was easily the best horse on this past Saturday down at Gulfstream Park. Thanks to the folks at Gulfstream that was on their YouTube page, and of course Pete Aiello calling the races down there. Let's head to Long Island. Let's head to Aqueduct. Chris Griffin on the call here. This is from the Naira's YouTube page. We go back to the Gotham. We will talk about the Gotham and its predictability for the Kentucky Derby, but it is deterministic who comes out on top here, the 3-horse.
AO is looming up on the outside. These two head and head as they reach the top of the stretch. 46-3 for the half mile time. 1:10-4 for 3/4. El Grandeo has got the lead in the Gotham. It's El Grandeo out in the center of the racetrack. Maximus Meridius is battling on, chasing is deterministic in between horses. El Grandeo, but here comes deterministic in full gear down towards the inside and takes the lead. It's deterministic who's in front, is up by a length and a half. Just a touch into second. Deterministic wins the Gotham.
So I have a couple things to say here. The only horse to win the Gotham to win the Kentucky Derby was a horse named Secretariat. Second thing I want to say, Barry's totally right about that surface. We had Dan Illman on last week, I guess 2 weeks ago now, and he was talking about the surface at Aqueduct. And because of that move from Belmont, instead of like reshaping it, they just made it deeper. And so, you know, it's hard to know, especially with these splits, Barry, how well horses are running at this point. But I do try to keep track of these preps that are run in the slop, because there's about a 45% chance they'll run in some kind of wet surface for the Kentucky Derby itself. The thing I liked about deterministic here is the horse went between horses, number one, to win the race. And number two, took a bunch of kickback, didn't seem to be bothered by it on the turn there. I look at those as positives. I don't know that this is a great determiner for the winner of the Kentucky Derby. What says Barry Spears?
yeah, I mean, that kind of experience has to count for something.
I agree.
When you do those kind of things that these horses haven't done yet, and they actually do them in a race is always a good thing, because the next time the situation comes up, they know pretty much what to do. That being said, I really don't believe that deterministic wants to get a mile and a quarter. I don't even know if that horse wants to get like a mile and a 16th. I think he's a really good one-turn miler. You know, obviously they're going to give it a shot. I would too if I was in that position.
Sure.
But I think when it's all said and done, that one would be a good miler, 7 furlong type horse.
You know, I was saying last week too that this is almost setting up that both the Preakness and the Pat Day Mile on Derby Day are going to be fire. Like we're going to get fantastic fields in both of those. And frankly, a 10 furlong Belmont at Saratoga, probably, I get it, put the asterisks on. Everyone that wants to be a purist,
yeah,
to do those
whatever,
things, have at it. If we get a great field at Saratoga, that's all I give a bleep about.
Right.
So
that's what
it.
we want every year.
Right.
That's what we want. Doesn't matter where, who, what, why. You know, good racing is good racing, you know?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, give me Dornoch, Sierra Leone, and Nisos in the same race. Let's go. I want all of it.
Let's do it.
Give me everything. Yes, that's right. So nothing held against deterministic. Does come from just behind the pace to win there in the Gotham, thanks to Naira on their YouTube page, and of course Chris Griffin on the call there. Let's go out west. The San Felipe, obviously Nisos scratches out, so we miss out on his run in that race. We're going to miss out on him in the Derby anyhow, so not a huge change for us here on the Derby Trail, except that Baffert went 1-2.
Thanks back in third. They turn for home. Imagination and Wind Me Up. Imagination just in front. Wind Me Up battling bravely at the rail. It's Imagination with a narrow lead with a furlong left to go. Wind Me Up, though, is very tough. And here comes Wind Me Up on the inside under Juan Hernandez. Wind Me Up, Imagination in a DK horse San Felipe thriller. Photo finish.
I gotta say, this is gonna sound totally snarky. My man Frank Miramonti's doing God's work, making 4 horse races sound interesting. I mean, he's doing God's work. It is what it is, people. I mean, that's God's work. You're out in LA. It's beautiful. I've been there. It's fantastic. Santa Anita's dope as hell. But that man is making chicken soup out of chicken bleed, people. That's what that is. And it's okay to say my man's doing work. At least we got a good stretch run out of this one, Barry. But I mean, I was actually really hoping Scatify was going to win this race and we get somebody out of California here.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but you know, I don't think if those horses were even going to compete that it would make anything any easier, because you couldn't separate those two, and there was nobody else in the race, so it was kind of like a workout. But it's tough with those California horses because the fields are small, and you don't know how they'll respond to a big field or anything like that. So it continues to be murky. And this year is even more like crazy than any other year because of those factors. And then everybody else is so lightly raced that, you know, I mean, who knows? We could see somebody just kind of blossom and grow up in the Tampa Bay Derby or any one of these next
Sure.
preps that we never even
Yes.
thought about.
I think that's totally right. The real thing that happened for me on Saturday, Barry, was I realized I was sad to just not see Nysos run. But imagine the kerfluffle if he didn't run and he was eligible for the Derby.
Right.
Right? And he missed a chance at a starting spot in the Kentucky Derby because he wasn't able to run in the San Felipe. That didn't happen, obviously, but the thought experiment of how people would have reacted had Nysos just not been available at all for the San Felipe. And then, like, is he going to make the Santa Anita Derby? Is he going to be able to run in that race? We missed out on that headline. We missed out on that conversation, and I hate that about this year.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations. Like, I don't really understand why a lot of trainers have gone to the trend of not giving themselves chances. I mean, a lot of these horses are going to be up against the wall needing a win or something close to it in order to get in the Derby. When there's opportunities to run, and it's kind of baffling in a way, especially if you want to make the Derby. You know, some people are just like, all right, whatever, we'll skip it. Our horse probably isn't built for that or what have you, and they'll do something else. You know, like a guy like Brad Cox, he really likes to train up, and it leaves a really slim margin of error. I mean, I thought he had a really good shot last year with Angel of Empire, but when I look back, it was like, man, if that horse may have run 1 or 2 times more, he might have been that much better prepared and closer to victory.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I talked to Brad last Friday on the Kentucky Racing Spotlight, and he's turning into Baffert in that he'll push the conversation in the direction of the horse he wants to talk about rather than the one you asked about. But you know, we're gonna go. He had the winner at Turfway, and we'll talk about Encino in a second here. He pushed everybody out of the way and talked about Encino on that show last week. And then I asked him, I said, a horse that's not in this race is Tennessee. Is he your Ruby horse? And I heard him smile through the phone because he knew
That's all you need to know.
Whatever the puzzle was. And he's like, yeah, he's my Ruby horse. I'm like, there it is. Okay. So his real horse out of that path is Tennessee. We haven't seen him yet, but Encino did win at Turfway Park in Florence last weekend. Zach, go ahead and play that one. Tony Callow on the call here up at Turfway Park.
Encino makes a move for third from the outside. Epic Ride has come away with the lead. Here comes Encino to the outside. Blue-Eyed George is trying to fight on. Bolted Midnight from the inside. A final furlong to run. And the John Battaglia Memorial. Epic Ride. Encino is testing him. Blue-Eyed George from the rail. Here comes Encino. Encino wins the John Battaglia Memorial.
So Epic Ride finishes second in this race, and John Ennis is one of these trainers, Barry, where if a horse is ready to go, he just puts him in the starting gate, right? And I love him for that stuff. What I like about John is we interviewed him a couple weeks ago, and he said about Epic Ride that if the horse didn't win this race, they would just run him back in the bluegrass and figure it out at Keeneland. I love that. That's fantastic. That is a fantastic attitude to have about a 3-year-old horse that's still developing, that's still getting better. And so I'm hopeful that horse will come back in the bluegrass. But again, of course, Brad Cox just picks up one of these races with Encino. Yeah. Barry, do you still have the Turfway thing in your head where you can't admit that this is actually a good route to the Derby, even though Rich Strike won the damn thing and Two Phils ran a really good race last year?
No, I mean,
okay, good. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
those days are gone.
Yeah, they definitely are. I mean, you had Animal Kingdom win.
That's right.
That was years ago. But
if you grab somebody in 2010 and said in the next 15 years there's going to be 2 Derby winners and a second placer off this track, people would have laughed at you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's just not the case anymore. It's a legitimate path to the Derby now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this field that they had the other night was pretty damn good. I mean, honestly, it's better than the Tampa Bay Derby field. So, you know, it's hard to tell. I mean, like I said, these horses haven't been running, you know, a lot. So it's you kind of have to pick and choose. And that's why the Derby is so unique is, you know, you get these fresh young horses in the starting gate. A lot of chaos can happen right at the beginning. and then you're out of the race, and you may have had the best horse. I mean, look at what happened to Point Given. He just
Yeah.
fire and Holy
The fire.
Bull, and the list goes on. But it makes it exciting, and now with everybody being so evenly matched, you can get a
Yeah.
winner from anywhere.
Yep. No, I think it feels wide open this year, and I pray to God for betting purposes that's true. And when I'm standing at 322 on that Saturday in May, we've got a pick 5 ticket to all or something like that ready to go. So that'd be great.
Shout out to Tony Kalo, man. He sounds like the quintessential race caller. Not to mention he's a great handicapper too. He's a good bettor. He's a very good
no. They went away from Jimmy was up there, and he was he's a Jocks agent too, so he's got plenty going on. And I was so worried they were going to lose that Turfway thing. Tony's been fantastic. He is a perfect,
excellent.
He fits there so perfectly.
I'm
so glad that he's able to swing down to Florence for the winner, which is fantastic. So, no, it's been fun. I'm glad to see, especially on in the negative space that is horse racing Twitter, to see people really embracing these weeknight tracks and that sort of stuff. And people, I know you like to refer to these dead days of racing, but I mean, when there's 10 horses in every race in a pick 5, that ain't. That's not.
That's what we look for. That's what we want.
Exactly right.
I mean, one of my guiltiest pleasures is my play on Friday nights. I like playing harness, and I like playing Charlestown and Turfway.
Sure,
it's fun.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're alone in that for sure. I had a buddy who I got into horse racing like 7-8 years ago, and he texted me a picture of a ticket from Charlestown, and he said, "You did this to me." Yeah, I did. That's true. I did. Yeah.
That's how you know they're for real. If they're betting Charlestown on a Thursday or Friday night,
that's exactly right.
They're in. They're
not
getting out.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Lifers.
I don't know if I've said it, but Barry Spears is at Urban Handicapper on Twitter. Go find him there. You can follow him along with thousands of people. How about that? A really good follow and tapped in to all that stuff. He's also on Going in Circles on Monday with our guy Chuck Simon. So make sure that you get in on that as well. Usually a multiple hour. So if you're a commuter or you need something at your desk on Mondays, Barry and Chuck give you that for sure as well. All right. Yeah, no, for sure. This is a predictive show. Theirs is a reactive show. And so it's one to get in on for sure. Do you have a Derby favorite at this point? I know it's a ridiculous question on the 7th of March.
You know what? It's funny because on the podcast this week, Chuck asked me this very same question.
Yes, he did.
The only horse that kind of caught my eye was Catching Freedom.
Okay.
And again, it was one of those things where the horse is kind of green. If he can get his act together in the stretch and run straight, that horse is going to be very, very good. I mean, it's just a matter of time as to when it happens. It's going to happen because Brad Cox is so good. It's just a matter of when. Hopefully, we'll get him at a price when he comes through.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's get into the card down at Tampa this coming Saturday. It is their biggest day of the year at Tampa Bay Downs, the Tampa Bay Derby, of course. I wanted to give a shout out before we started, of course, to our guys at Single Barrel Cigars. Check them out. But you mentioned hey, try this out. Get your horses running, that kind of thing. Arnaud Delacour has Fulmineo in the Challenger back on the turf, but they tried him on the Derby Trail. They wanted to see. They wanted to see if they had that 3-year-old. They've come to the conclusion that they don't. So he'll be in the Challenger, obviously on this card in race 7, but not in the Challenger. He's going to be in the Columbia. Excuse me. I got my got my space missions mixed up. Here we go. And so it's the happy hour, people. There's only so much I can do here. All right, but we'll get to race 6 here. This does start their pick 6. Which runs through race 11. It is a grade 3 Challenger, mile and a 16th. Some horses in here that you definitely know, including last year's winner in Skippy Longstocking. Not a great showing off the bench. Last out in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational at Gulfstream Park. Had to actually be pulled up in that race. Barry, does that mean much to you, or are you drawing a line through that one for him in this race?
You got to have to think about it. I know the horse did the same thing last year, but at least he finished the race. He didn't run that great in the Pegasus, which was, comparatively to the Challenger, is a world of difference class-wise. So I can forgive that race, even though he didn't finish. It looks like he came out of it okay, had a couple of work stints.
The workouts look fine, yep.
Yeah, so I'm not too concerned. But the idea is basically where the gamble is in this race is how much you think Impacto is going to get in Skippy's way.
Okay.
If you think that horse can get in his way and kind of make things a little bit difficult for Skippy Longstocking, then this race gets wide open. If not, Skippy should run over this field twice over and win by 10.
Yeah, it's I don't want to call it a free space in the pick six, but if you were going to go skinny to start your pick six, it's probably this leg with Skippy Longstocking. Do you give Dynamic One much of a chance here? Hasn't won in many years. Is 4 for 15 lifetime. 6-year-old coming in here. I think it's the connections making him 5-2 in a short field more than anything.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. I mean, this horse probably wants to go longer than the mile and the 16th anyway. Um, this is probably something to get him through those summertime kind of stakes where he had a pretty good run last year or 2 years ago. In 2022 with the Suburban, during
I
the
remember
summer,
that Suburban.
kind of,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
really good.
I mean,
Yeah,
he
he's
kind of
really good.
peaked and he was running really well that year. That whole year he ran pretty decent. So I think they're going to try to point towards those races, and this one it seems a little bit too short, but good enough to springboard off of, especially coming off of Pegasus that was kind of over his head.
Yeah, it was a little over his head. He did earn enough money in that Pegasus to pay for his purchase price for his career at $730,000. He was purchased for $725,000. Before anyone says anything, yes, I understand that's not how horse racing works. All right, next next race is race 7, the Columbia. It's black type, 75K here, mile on the turf course there, that beautiful lush turf course. What's it like having a reliable turf course, Barry?
It's different, but actually lately they've been kind of babying it a little bit and been off the turf. It kind of got rainy here last week, so
Yep.
I get it. I mean, it was kind of monsoon type conditions, but not for very long, but enough to kind of soak it really bad where they couldn't run on it. That being said, most days it's absolutely lovely. Chad Brown is out here. He's got a few horses that have been running well over this track. In fact, he's been so kind of cold that Tampa's really the only place he's been winning.
It's not wrong. We had Brian Nadeau on last week from Gulfstream Park. He had nothing but great things to say about the turf course at Tampa. We head there for this mile race. I have Full Moneo on top, man. I really like the 10 horse here, even though he's got to make that trip from the outside. I think this move to this race makes a ton of sense for him. I don't want to call this essentially a high level allowance, but it essentially is a high level allowance for 3-year-olds. What says Barry Spears about this one?
I looked at this race up and down a few times, and basically where I stand with it is there's not much speed in here at all.
Right.
And a horse like In a Jam,
I agree,
who was showing speed at, maiden races. Then he jumps up into an optional claimer allowance type race, 75K at Gulfstream, and he comes from pretty far out of it. And to me, that's signaling that with the tougher competition, he's probably not going to be on the lead. So that kind of brings me to Full Nelson, the horse outside of him, the 8, who might go unopposed for a lot of this race. And I think he's gonna hang in there. He's getting one of the top riders at the track, so he knows the track well. He rides there every day. And Sammy does a great job of rating horses on the front end. And not to mention, he's kind of on the way up. He's kind of getting better. They switched him over to the turf from the synthetic 2 races ago, and he's on a 3-race winning streak. I think this horse has a lot of upside. The pace kind of favors his way at 10-1. I really can't resist, but a horse like Move the Gold, who's going to be the favorite, hasn't run since actually my birthday, October 28th. And he just seems like a dead closer. Has one kind of okay race, but it's going to be tough because I don't think this pace is going to get fast.
Yeah, it's interesting too. So I mean, the wild card to me here is the 3-1 TikTok, the 9 horse coming off the layoff, right? And we haven't seen a consistent pattern coming out of that Breeders' Cup for some reason. It's either horses are ready to go or they're fierceness, right? And so or Life Talk or whatever, right? I mean, it is really fascinating trying to predict which of these horses coming off the bench from the fall, as 2-year-olds, of course, are going to be good at 3 and TikTok. I think it's one you got to include in your tickets because if he wins, are you going to be surprised? I wouldn't be.
No, I mean, a lot of these horses could win and you wouldn't be surprised. But Talk is very, very good. And, it's just a matter of how you feel about the layoff.
Yeah. A reminder, this is one of the pick 5s. Another pick 5 will start later on, but in race 8 is a handicap 7 furlongs. This is the Manatee Overnight, which is one of my favorite names in all of horse racing. It's up there with the Dinner Party Stakes for very different reasons. But this is 7 furlongs on the dirt, 4 and up for fillies and mares. 50K in the kitty here. I don't love the favorite here. And so I think there's a chance to make some money, Barry, even without a huge field. What says you?
Yeah, it's the same sort of situation as the last one we talked about, where, you know, I'm not really too sure how quick the pace is going to be for a horse like Sterling Silver to run into, especially off the layoff. It's just a tough task, and on the rail to boot. That's a tough horse to take at a short price. Um, I think, there's a possibility that the pace could be honest enough for a horse like the Four Chitara to come
I agree.
kind of running late, but
Yep.
I'm not really sure if this horse is going to stay in this race or not, or run at
I agree
Gulfstream.
with that too. Yep.
So you got to have to kind of tread carefully. A horse like Poema seems like it's a rabbit for Dream Concert, but there's a sort of a situation. This horse is getting Jose Ortiz, and you're like, why? But the horse has speed. I
Right.
think one of Jose Ortiz's strengths is his riding on the front end, especially on the dirt. This horse is training well. There's a bullet there on February 25th at
Yep.
Gulfstream. 2 bullets, actually. His last 2 works were bullets. And the other horses in this race don't feel like they're really all that quick. And even that one can kind of come off the pace slightly. Dream Concert is another one that might be tough in this spot, that likes this track and is only getting better. So this is a really wide open race. I couldn't fault anybody for really liking anybody, maybe other than maybe 1 or 2 others.
Try the 5 Lady Rattler on top here, second off the layoff, ran in that Raven run at Keeneland, just was out of gas by the end of her campaign last year. I thought she ran really well for a first time back in that Minaret on Sam F. Davis Day this last month in February. I think she's got a legit shot here as well for Jesus Castanon. And a smaller barn in the Campbell barn, that might be the kind of horse that can really elevate a pick whatever sequence that you're in as well, especially if you can get that horse somewhere around 6 to 1 like it is on the morning line.
Yeah,
All right.
usually at Tampa, once or twice a day, you get these kind of inexplicable results, and I don't know which race it's going to be in, but I'm pretty sure one of these races is somebody's going to pop at a huge price. It usually happens every year, especially on the big days. Every Tampa Bay Derby day, there's usually one price that's outrageous. Like, how did that happen? So we'll see.
According to the Graded Stakes Committee, the 9th race is the best race at Tampa the whole year. It is the Hillsborough. It is a grade 2. It's 1 1/8 miles on that chute down there at Tampa Bay Downs. Another pick 4 here that you can play. Really playable takeout rates on the doubles, the pick 3s, and the pick 4s at Tampa. So whatever kind of player you are, you want to try those rolling pick 3s, maybe take a stand in some of these races. Really good opportunity this weekend. We see some horses in here. There's a lot of class in this race, Barry. We get Fluffy Socks here, market segmentation, both out of the Brown Barn. Obviously, Sparkle Blue is in here at 8 to 1. That's a pretty good sign that this is a pretty damn good race. What do you say about this one?
Yeah, this is brutal. This race was really tough. But, after, kind of pouring over the PPs, I do think Beechnut Trophy is going to scratch out of this race, which kind of makes it a little bit easier, not much. But market segmentation looks like the controlling speed. And I'm not really too sure who's going to get in front of this horse at all. I think this one might be the goods in this race, especially with the scratch of Beechnut Trophy, who doesn't have or has shown some zip in the past. Elusive Princess is another one that looks to be in great form. But beyond those two, I think it's kind of a toss-up. But I like those two, but they're probably going to be bet pretty good in this race.
Yeah, the only one you didn't mention that I'm going to have an eye on is Star Fortress on the outside, just because I thought she came back okay in that the World Cup, the Pegasus Philly Mare Turf. Not a great run, 5 lengths off the winner by the end, but that was the first time back since a run in the Cardinal right before Thanksgiving here in Louisville at Churchill Downs. But here's the deal. I don't know how much that was really grass in November at Churchill. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like they shut the turf course down the next day.
That's right, the next day.
So
yes.
I'm not at all sure how much of a turf race that really was. But I think that horse on the outside is going to get a good ride, and I do think Cherie DeVoe does a really nice job with horses second off the layoff as well. And Tyler will give that horse a really, really fair trip as well, I think, in that one. So I agree, though. If you're lazy,
she's definitely talented. You know what I think about her? She's definitely talented. I just need her to prove it to me again. She ran great at Churchill, and then not so bad. I mean, it wasn't the best of trips, but she didn't fire either. She was the morning line favorite, I think, in that race.
Oh,
at
she went off
and
at
then
like
she drifted up to like 7-2.
7-2 something.
And
That's right.
didn't get the greatest of trips either. Was bump
Mm.
checked around a little bit.
Yeah.
So I can understand people, giving her the pass on that one. I just wasn't too enthusiastic about her in that race because of how she
Sure.
ran at Churchill. Now the rebound makes a lot of sense in this
Yeah.
spot.
It does. And I think that shoot will help her running style as well, because she's going to want to run
Let her
late.
settle.
It's going to let her settle in 4th, 5th position. That's exactly right. I think Tyler will slot her in very nicely there as well. Let's move on. Florida Oaks, grade 3. Obviously for 3-year-old fillies here, 200K in the kitty. Mile and a 16th. We're back on that turf course as well. Look, this is another one where, at least on the morning line, they think it's pretty wide open when dynamic pricing, all these horses named Dynamic, I'm going to lose track. Dynamic pricing is the Chad Brown, Jose Ortiz favorite at 7-2. Do you agree that she's the favorite here?
Yeah, absolutely. She kind of ran the best in a strong race, the Swedish Chant that a couple of them are coming out of. I do think those horses might dominate this race. If I had to pick right now, I would go with the 5 Waskisu.
Like it.
I think that horse is on the rise. Mott tends to do well with these types of runners. Horses that show flashes, come back, then kind of he takes his time, and when they get back on the scene, they really run. And I think we're going to get that kind of effort out of this horse on Saturday. But this is an evenly matched race. I could see more than half of this field winning. So if pretty much anybody but the 2. And even the 2, you could make a case for in some way, shape, or form.
If that horse gets an early lead and no one pushes,
right, and nobody goes, it's a home run almost.
Yeah, right. You don't know. Yeah, right.
But dynamic pricing should be able to get his run. It's just a closer. I'm not really too fond of closers at all. I think you need to be at least close up, but Irad's the best. And Jose, he's the second best. So, I think Jose rides better on the turf. Anyway. But man, this is going to be a hell of a race.
Yeah, the only one that you didn't mention that I'm really fascinated to see here, only because I think Trina Marcassi's just trying different things with her. She ran in the Ford Gal to see if she was going to be on the Oaks Trail. Didn't like the dirt. They're getting her off the dirt. She ran on the synthetic. This is Whitwater's ran on the outside, the 12-horse 8-1 here for that barn. Look, I'm just interested. They hired the local jock in Gallardo. I don't know if this horse ends up winning the race. It might be too much work for her to run and win from the 12, but I'm interested to see her because she's going to try to run in that stalking position. I think she's going to be right behind A Primera Vista, for example. And if that's not fast enough, I could see her going and making her own way. And in that way, we might get something interesting in that race.
Yeah, well. I think getting out or being forced to get position is probably a blessing in disguise for that horse.
All right. Well, the race of the day, race 11, is the Tampa Bay Derby, grade 3, 400K in the kitty here, mile and a 16th. It is presented by Lamb Home South as well. Ooh, a little too much. Oh, cigar head out.
Oh,
it's almost like smoking's bad for you. All right. Well, we got a bunch in here. We got domestic product back from that Holy Bull, and of course, No More Time, the winner of the Sam F. Davis last month. How did he look, by the way? I know you were there. Did you make the trip for the Davis? I can't remember.
Yeah, I was there.
That's right.
Absolutely.
How did he look in the Davis?
He looked pretty good. I mean, it was such an odd race because it didn't really pan out like it looked like it was going to on paper. And I kind of thought that after the race that No More Time kind of got an easy sort of lead. He ended up being the favorite, which was a little surprising, but he kind of had his way with it, and I know Agate Road kind of sort of made a run at him, but it was never in doubt. I mean, it was a pretty strong performance, and it wasn't as slow as it might appear. Comparatively with the times of everybody else in this race, it was rather quick.
Yeah.
But that being said, he's not a monster. Nobody's afraid of him. There's a lot of different directions you can go, and a horse like Domestic Product, who I kind of like in this spot because he ran into a slow pace. and was finishing pretty good. And I think that can only help him as things get a little bit quicker. He's just got to get a rider that's going to be, patient enough to wait for it, because he's going to give it to you in the stretch.
Calumet is paying Irad Ortiz to ride good money in this race. Run once, won once for Chad Brown. Do you read into that at all?
You kind of have to, because
I
I don't see Irad wasting mounts.
Not in a $400,000 race. That's right.
Right,
No.
exactly. I mean, I think if he didn't really, or him and his agent didn't think that this horse had somewhat of a chance, he wouldn't be in it riding. He'd be somewhere else, or doing other things, winning other races in other places.
That's right.
That being said, these horses improve. He's a 3-year-old. He ran good the first time out on the track that they're running on. There's a lot of upside here. Even with the maiden on the way outside, why not? I mean, that race he ran a 1.125 was not bad. The horses that were beating him are awfully good. Locked, Domestic Product, who's in this race. So, I mean, this can go a lot of different directions. But I think Domestic Product, just off the last race, that big improvement off the, the kind of freshening, I think it just springboards that horse into a different category at the end of the day.
It is so interesting that you mentioned Sturdy on the outside. I'm fascinated by that horse too. I think they were going to run in this spot no matter what, but he has run without Lasix, obviously, as a 2-year-old over that 1.125 course on Long Island at Aqueduct under Javier Castellano. I love that Junior Alvarado gets the ride here. Really interested to see if he can put together a good race in this one as well. Because
I'd like to see him at least getting the money and get some points.
Yeah, no, that's right. And so, I don't know why I can't get over good money here, man. The 4-horse. There's something about that horse that's just
Chad Brown, especially with
he just stretches out so damn well. He
does.
Irad stretching out. It just makes so much damn sense to me.
It definitely does, and it's just bizarre because you see Jose Ortiz is riding the 1 for Pletcher, and that's where you most likely would see Irad. So there's a lot going on in this race. You just gotta make some decisions, I guess.
Go ahead and give us a pick. Is it Domestic Product?
Yes, that's what
I think it is too. I think he's the winner at the end of the day. I'm watching the 4 though, and I'm watching the outside horse as well in the 10 in Sturdy, a son of Matoli. Never thought I'd be talking about Matoli's routing, but here we are. I say that, but the horse won the damn mile. I mean, it's not like he, it's not like he didn't go distance. I mean, just really fast. One of my favorites the last decade for sure in Matoli. So good to see his kids doing just fine. The last leg of all of this is an allowance on the turf, 1.116 up that chute. This is for fillies and mares who are 4 and up. This is essentially a non-2-lifer in this one. I think this is a race where you can go pretty skinny. What says Barry Spears?
Yeah, I think you can do that. I do like a horse in here that is probably going to be around 7 or 8 to 1. Is Cloud Storage.
Nice.
I think that horse has run well in the past, especially at Tampa. He has 2 wins on the turf course, and I think this horse is versatile enough to be where you need him to be. And I think Bennett, chose Camacho to ride this horse for that reason, because he's so good at reading the pace. And when it slows down, he's up near the front. When it speeds up, he's back in the pack to get his best run. So I think that one's going to be a good shot here. I might take a shot and single him in the last.
Love it. No, that's great. And I mean, frankly, one of the things I love doing this podcast, Barry, is that we do go to different tracks around the country, and you're forced to really immerse yourself in who the royalty of those tracks are. Sammy Camacho's Tampa royalty. He just is. It's okay to say. I mean, that horse, King Guillermo. That's all I need to say. People drink. And so it is. It's an interesting close. I don't know. Do you have a similar rule that if a jockey who's in from out of town stays around for the last race, you pay attention?
Yes. Typically,
okay.
You kind of have to. I mean, those guys are trying to get out of there, especially to go across state, back to Miami. the Miami area. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So
it's
I
a
ran
long
on
drive.
the 3 here. Yeah, I ran on the 3 here, not a million years. Tyler staying on startup mentality for Chad Brown as well. I'm going to be using the 2 Chads at the end of the sequence here just to try to get out of town. Barry will be on the 7 cloud storage. I really like that pick. Seems to be a really good one. Shout out to our guy Eddie C, by the way, commenting on the show. The deputy minister lineage on the 4 there, of course. And so, I mean, that Tampa Bay Derby, dude, if you, like Barry said, I think you could make a legitimate case for I don't
Half
know,
of them.
at least, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right. And to hit the board, almost all of them for sure. Wanted to give a shout out to one of the really good guys in racing. Darwin Vizcaya's got a horse in the Tampa Derby in literally in Kati Ray Vizcaya, the 6 horse there. He's going to be 30-1. He's really up against it in this race, but I love Darwin. He's such a good guy. Does great work up at Naira. Pues, si habla español, Darwin es tu hermano. Okay. So get in on Darwin. He's a great guy doing all this stuff. Naira en español. Love that stuff for sure. I need to do an episode in Spanish, don't I? Barry, I just need to
You should. Yeah, you definitely should. Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think that's my best chance to talk to Claudia Spadaro. Just saying.
There you go. Hey, I'm going down there in a couple weeks, man. Just give me something to say. I can write it up for you. I read and write Spanish, so we're good.
All right, so you'll be at Tampa this weekend. You've seen what he looks like. People, go harass him. Say that.
Yeah, please do.
Happy hour. Let's go. What are we doing?
I like taking pictures.
100%. But that's one of the things about the track is meeting people from.
Oh man, it's so fun.
Stuff. It's the best for sure. Yeah,
it's so.
All right.
Fun.
Well, he's Barry Spears at Urban Handicapper on Twitter. Find him on Going in Circles with our guy Chuck Simon every Monday as well. And all the good work they do over there. Barry, we always love it when you jump on. I'm sure we'll talk to you before the Derby. Be well, my friend. I'm glad you look good, man. You feeling good?
Feeling great, man. Getting used to everything, the medicines and the routine and all this other stuff that I didn't even know about before. But, I'm making it. I feel good, though. I feel, probably better than ever. Even before this happened, I was feeling great. And I was like, wow, that was not on my bingo card.
Well, there you go. Sometimes the cumulative parts of life catch up. What's up, Zach?
I should add that everyone looks good when Louie's on the show.
That's fair enough. Yeah. Thank you, Zach. Thank you. You know it. He's not wrong. It's okay. All right. Well, he's Barry Spears. We'll let him get out of here. Barry, we appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you, Barry. All right, Zach, get on here, buddy. We'll close up the show together. Zacharias on here, producer Zach, if you will. Look, man, it's interesting because these 50-point preps and with how trainers are training up to the Derby now and skipping these races, they've become really important cogs in the story of the path
Absolutely.
to the Derby now. And especially with Derby 150 and all the hoopla that's going to be going on. I listen to media around town here talk about what they're working on, and they're like, top 10 Derby moments ever. I'm like, you're an investigative journalist looking up meth. Like, what are you talking about Derby? Like, this kind of stuff. That's where we're at, man. I mean, it's already kicking up around here, which is fun. It's one of the best times of year around here for sure. But these are the kinds of races,
spoiler
man.
alert, the top 10 Derby moments ever are already clocked.
Yeah. Thanks for adding to that list of exactly the same thing that everyone else has been doing. We will have the Gold Book, goldbookbets.com
Yes,
on
Gold Book.
today. I will have a pick 5 play and a pick 6 play for Tampa as part of that card. And I'll probably have a couple of rolling pick 3s for earlier in the card because there are some races that I really like where I think you can get some value as well. I want to thank everybody for hanging out. I think we had a huge number on the stream on Twitter today, which I really appreciate. You can find us at Horse Happy Hour on Twitter if you're listening right now. You can join, I think it's like 6,000 or 7,000 people that watch us every month on Spotify as well. So go check us out there as well. We get great pictures in our DMs from people. By the way, don't DM us. Put them on Twitter and tag us. That's way better for us. So if you're watching this show, I don't know, in Maine or something, like I've seen before, go ahead and take a picture of your TV.
Or Dubai or China or wherever.
Like 30 people in Poland that listen every week. I don't know why you do, but I love you. And so, yes, I'll be one of those people and just go ahead and give us a shout that way. All right, producer Zach, how are things going? You doing all right? We
good.
Usually,
well, I should talk business. We will have a pre-order up next month for our Derby 150 package. You're going to see 25% off on that package if you order in the month of April. So
so we'll have you covered every racing day at Churchill Downs Derby Week. We'll do both days, Black Eyed Susan and Preakness, and then of course Belmont Day as part of that package. as well. Have you totally covered for all of those races. Goldbookbets.com. Get in now, because then you get on the email list anytime you download from us, and we'll make sure that you're totally covered with all of those things as well. Tomorrow on the Kentucky Racing Spotlight, I wanted to share this. It'll come out on this platform as well. I'm going to talk to my friend Roger Browning. And if you don't know his story, he was the owner of a great story and then a really tragic one with Nobody Listens last year. And if you want to hear the connection between owner and horse and how emotional it gets with these equine athletes, it's a really good chance to hear that. And I really encourage people to listen to that episode, either live tomorrow, 6 o'clock here in Louisville on 680, 1057, or if you want to, right on this platform here with the Horse Racing Happy Hour as well. Again, want to thank our friends. I
want to say that, like, sitting, there we go. Rep Single Barrel
Cigars. Really good guys, Nick, man. Amazing. All the guys down there. Amazing guys. The product is really good. If you like bourbon, if you like cigars, best marriage out there. Not even a question. Their process, they buy the full leaf tobacco from Nicaragua, import it, buy the empty barrels, hang it in the barrels.
Yep.
Instead of artificial flavors, none of that BS. They put them together. Delicious cigars. Really, really great. And so make sure you get in on those as well. I apologize. I cut you off.
Oh, I was just going to say, like every other sport, horse racing looks like hardcore business, which it is, when you watch it on TV or on the internet. But man, Roger's story is just amazing. Like
Roger's story is really, really worth hearing.
Human aspect of this, that owners are invested in their horses. This is not just a business. It's also, there's human investment.
Oh yeah. And you'll hear the emotion, and he and I talked yesterday. You will hear the heartbreak of owning a horse and all those things. And, he sounds like a guy who lost his dog he had for 15 years. I mean, he really does. And so I really want people to hear that story. It's heartbreaking, but it is absolutely worth tuning in for tomorrow.
Absolutely.
All right, Zach, play some music. Let's get out of here. And we will get you into your weekend again, 10 to noon tomorrow on ESPN 680, 1057. If you want to join me, listen anywhere in the world, ESPNLouisville.com. And of course, tomorrow on the Kentucky Racing Spotlight, we'll talk to him and trainer. Oh my gosh, now I'm mixing up all of my guys. His horse just won the Oaks Prep. His name is Eric Foster. I apologize to Eric for that. We tried to connect today. He and I will connect tomorrow and get that episode together for everybody. But let's play the music and get out of here. For producer Zach and our guy, Barry Spears, I'm Louie Barry. This is the Horse Racing Happy Hour at Horse Happy Hour, horseracinghhappyhour.com for all the good things as well. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck this weekend.